At Best Buy, we tried to take what I think is a somewhat innovative approach and tried to consolidate all the material risks within a single organization because we wanted to be able to bring the best risk mitigation and risk assessment tools to all of our material risks in the company. So within my organization, I have enterprise risk management, I have ethics and compliance, I have data security, I have business continuity, I have fraud, and I have product safety and customer data privacy. A whole jumble of exciting challenges to keep me awake every night. Yeah, we do it in a couple of different ways. One is we're fortunate enough to have the enterprise risk management capability as part of the team. That means we take the opportunity not only to assess the compliance risks and the risks that are in our immediate purview, but also strategic risks. Like in our case, tariffs are a big issue for our company, and we see the potential impact of a change in tariff policy to our overall strategy. We can take that risk and use the same methodology, assess it for the leadership team, and also do a comparison against material business interruption risks, say, to our supply chain due to a cyber event. Being able to put those two things side by side within a business strategy discussion and talk about it in regard to how we allocate resources within the company, that's been a game changer for us in terms of providing strategic value to our enterprise. I think we've had two different phases, right? We had the 2012 phase where our objective was not to die as a company. And so that's always easy when you tell everybody, let's try to survive as an enterprise and complete this turnaround in a way that shows the market that we are still relevant and that we all should still have our jobs. Our CEO took a very clear point of view, and we were able to deploy a very compliance-oriented structure there, where you basically tell everybody, we don't have time for nonsense. We don't have time for people to be engaging in inappropriate behavior. There's just, everybody at that point was fearful of their jobs, and so those are really, really effective messages at that time. That urgency, that all hands on deck attitude was able to be used very, very effectively to mitigate conduct that we'd say was not helpful to business objectives, and surprisingly had very few people trying to cut corners or do things to enhance business performance. In part, that was because we had leaders who were very focused on turning around the company for the long term. And frankly, part of what they were trying to remedy was behaviors that were more short-term in nature and therefore weren't actually producing lasting value. So there was really good alignment during that initial turnaround phase. Now we've entered in a new phase called transformation. And what we've tried to do as part of our strategy is emphasize our competitive advantage, which we're Best Buy. We're a bricks and mortar retailer. So our competitive advantage is that we are a people organization, right? We have more people than an e-commerce person would to be able to service your needs and to talk to you. As part of that human orientation, we very much focused on what's the level of trust and what's the level of integrity you need to exhibit at all times in order to enhance that competitive advantage. And we've been able to use data from companies like Ethisphere, but also real interactions between customers and customer feedback to show that trust element is critical to being able to provide your service business and your interaction business to a company like Best Buy. And so we're leveraging that throughout our strategic discussions, whether we're talking about customer data privacy, information security, or ethics. I think for most compliance officers or risk officers or ethics officers, you have this patina of, oh, here comes the judgmental guy. Here comes the person who's going to come in and tell us like how we're not right or something like that. I've always said for us to have credibility, we need to be the least judgmental people in the organization. And so how do we get our messages across in a way that takes judgment out of it, that presents us as actually the most objective and reasonable people in the organization. And data is a great way to be able to do that. If I can present a leader with information regarding this is what your employees are saying about the culture, about how they feel in their current work environments, that's compelling. And then I don't have to do anything. I can actually be, yeah, well, some of this can be misinterpreted, and I can be kind of that rationalizer or balancer within that conversation. And it's really helpful for us to land the messages. And it creates a desire in that leader to activate and correct things themselves, rather than telling us, well, can you do more training for us? Or can you come in and put these controls in place? They feel more accountable when they see the data regarding their organization in black and white. Don't try to just make it up on your own. Reach out, benchmark with Bella, benchmark with other leaders. I'm sure, if you're like me, I found out I was the Chief Compliance Officer of Best Buy 12 years ago when I was introduced as an audit committee to an audit committee member as the new Chief Compliance Officer. No one gave me a handbook. We had no program to start with. So I had to figure it out, and that's where being able to rely on organizations and other companies that have built their own programs and be able to benchmark with peers has been critical. And the fact is, in compliance and ethics, we all improve by the corporate community having a better ethics and compliance record. And so from that standpoint, nobody should be afraid to share or afraid to make another company better, because that just makes a healthier environment for everyone. I would say, we're still in the process of it, but we've been transforming our ethics program into something that has gone from more rules-based and more prescriptive to data-driven and principles-driven. And the ability to take something as, how would you say, that can be as off-putting as having an ethics conversation and say, no, we want to talk about your leadership and your leadership principles and the way you approach your job and how you show your integrity day in and day out. That's a different level of conversation that you're seeing a lot of companies engage in, and I'm glad to say that we were part of that trend early on and have already manifested some of those principles in our brand messaging. So every time the CEO gets up and talks about our brand, he's talking about ethics now. And that's pretty exciting. That's what every program wants to try and achieve.